Well, it's probably some of that, but I think the officers don't tell me everything as well, so I sort of like want to carry on tradition and not tell them as much, you know. So.
I understand how that goes too. It seems like need-to-know basis kind of thing. I've heard that before. Let's come back down here. Let's talk a little bit briefly to you. How many years have you been involved?
I think I started, in '89, I believe it was.
And again, what made you decide artillery as opposed to infantry?
I like making the real noise on the field.
You're trying to tell us this makes a little bit of noise?
Oh, yeah, a little bit.
What about, is something about significance about you traveling differently as opposed to walking out across an open field with people shooting at you? You're relatively safe back here. Is that true of the artillery, or were you a primary target?
We were primary targets because we were doing a lot of damage out there. So, and musket balls can shoot 1,000 yards, so they try to hit you pretty good. Yeah, right? About 1,000 yards. Yeah.
And if you have an artillery piece that's going to shoot 2.5 miles, the other side must have something that's comparable too, so they're going to be aiming right at you as well.
Absolutely.
Close rank, march. Order, arm. In place, rest.
It should be quite obvious now to who the man is on my extreme left. General Lee, tell us a little bit about what's going on today.
Well, we have made plans. I'm not at liberty to speak of all of them, and I do not know all the aspects of them. We speak generally, if I may use that term, but I leave the rest up to the commanding officers, and I will be observing at a distance and not necessarily giving any more direction unless we need to make some quick changes.
And we were just talking a few moments ago, too, about your particular personality. Now, as I understand it, you're quite meditative, particularly on a day like today when the unknown is out there?
Yes, yes. As I say, I observe at a distance and try to discern what my adversary is going to do next. Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I am not, and we will change as we go along as to the observances I make of the Union.
Now, as I understand, there is a train that's involved today. We also know that you have a few soldiers out there. I'm sure that you're not at liberty to tell me how many soldiers you have as well. What about your expectations of the enemy?
I expect them to attack with great vigor. They will not give up easily, and they will not be driven out easily, but we will try very hard to do so.
I assume that you are quite confident you will be successful today.
Yes, I am expecting victory. Not at any cost, but there will be loss. But there will be loss on their side, too, something to make them think about. Give them to think about, I should say.
I was just assigned this duty today. I'm Captain Caleb Stone, 5th Texas.
I understand, and so for the day you are serving as the general's aide, sir?
Yes, security, more or less.
And when you say security, are you expecting some enemy infiltration in this area today?
As with any high-ranking official, president, whatever, there's always that element to possibility.
Particularly when the commanding general is on site, you have to be prepared for anything.
I mean, after all, he's the commanding officer of the Army of Northern Virginia.
I understand.
Number one military man in the Confederacy. So.
Could I ask you gentlemen to step out of character for a moment and I ask you individual personal questions?
Of course.
Sir, let me ask you, first of all, why did you pick General Lee? Is it obvious?
Well, I only pick white-bearded men, and so that narrows it down. I didn't want to do a white-bearded despot, and the name Lee had crossed my mind a number of times. However, at the time I was not interested in the Civil War, and it was only after studying Lee and reading a book called The Last Years that I decided to do him, because I found that there was great depth to his character. And I like that he related to people around him, and that's the type of characters I like to portray, because I think communication between people is extremely important, and it is very life-changing. And we were put here to change lives in a positive way while we have the time to do it.
Can you tell me your real name and your profession, a little bit of background?
My real name is John Belt. I live in Venango, Pennsylvania, and I work part-time at a children's home there.
It's very interesting that you chose a man who is such high profile, but it seems to me that your individual thinking seems to be very close to his as well.
Oh, yes, he was high profile, but not because he wanted to be. He would allow himself to be high profile for the sake of a cause and for the benefit of others. And yet he was a very personable person. He cared about the feelings of others, even though he could not always control the outcomes of it. But he literally bent over backwards to change things on behalf of others.
And Captain, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born and raised in Texas, native-born Texan, and I've been studying the Civil War for probably 20 years. And a Centennial came to our town in Pennsylvania, and I saw these guys walking around. I thought, And 16 years ago, and I've been doing it ever since, every summer, sweating.
Now, did you choose this particular character, or you just wanted to originally get involved just because you had the interest?
Because I had the interest, basically, and it looked like something I'd be interested in, and we formed a unit called Company G at 22nd Virginia, which is a host unit here, and I was elected the officer. I really didn't want to be the officer, but I got stuck with it, and here I am.
And now we're going to continue our interview with Jimmy
Meyer, the provost sergeant for the 22nd Virginia.
What's a provost sergeant?
He was the early military police of the era. They had provosts all the way back through the Revolutionary War. We take charge of the trains and the towns and whatnot, keep martial law. My job here is to keep an eye on the camps, make sure, the fires are safe, and safety's first for everything around here. More or less, I got a team, we do guard duty 24 hours when we're doing an event.
So when there's something else going on, in other words, you secure the camp as the reenactors are out.
Right. Each reenactor, they got probably a couple $1,000s tied up in gear, and they got stuff laying around, and when they come back, they like to see it where they left it. So we keep an eye on stuff. We've been doing it about 8 years now.
Do you feel that you're missing out on any of the other reenacting?
No, I've been reenacting for 16 years. I've been out there, I've done it. The body don't take it anymore. You get older, the bones get a little brittler. I can't say I don't miss it. I do, there's times, but there's also a job that has to be done behind the scenes, and I try to do that.
I'm a correspondent sent by my governor, Andrew, from Massachusetts, and he knows the governor from Harper's Weekly. And I go down to the campgrounds to interview the soldiers to see how they're doing, if they have enough shoes, clothes, if their officers are treating them right or badly. Sometimes they punish them, just for minor things. I think it's because they get bored in the campground. There are people who go down to see sanitary conditions and things like that, but I don't do that. I go to visit the soldiers and sit down beside them and talk with them.
And you're taking notes and articles to report back to Harper's?
Right, right.
How do you send your messages back? Is there a telegraph office nearby?
I go by telegraph, and sometimes I go home by train. But I can't have my name in the paper. They don't believe in women being correspondents. So
I was going to question you about that.
Yes, they don't like that. But Harper's, I graduated very well in my class. My governor, Andrew, liked me, and he likes the governor of New York. So I do both.
And they like the material you send back. They just can't give you personal credit for it.
No, but that's all right. I know it.
May I ask you about the gentleman you were talking with?
Yes, he's a politician, and he's a senator from New York, and he seems to be against the draft, which does bother me a bit because he seems to forget that we're supposed to be a union and we save this union no matter what. And I do agree with President Lincoln we should have the draft. So.
Sir, may we talk with you, please?
Yes, you will.
We were just talking with a lady from Harper's Weekly, and she says that you're a politician from New York?
That is correct.
And what are you doing here today, sir?
I'm here to speak to this crowd about the draft that was instituted in March of this year, and I want them to know that as a senator from New York, I'm not in favor of it.
Your main objection is?
Too many people are being killed riding over it, and I think the time should be taken for the Supreme Court to deal with it and decide whether or not it's legal.
You mean whether the draft is legal?
Yes, the draft is legal.
And your particular statement is going to be specifically just from the legal point of view?
Legal point of view. I feel that the President and the Congress worked too fast on this, and I think time should have been taken for the Supreme Court to decide whether or not it was a legal process.
And let me ask you one last question. This is not an election year, is it, sir?
No, it is not. No, it is not.
Have you had relatives that have been killed or injured in the war?
Not to this point, but I have two sons that are fighting, one on each side, and I'm very concerned about both of them.
I would think particularly this, of course, is known as a war of brother against brother, and you felt that personally.
Yes, I have. Both my wife and I are very concerned because of that.
And you were speaking at what time today, sir?
About 10 o'clock, sir.
And we will see you on the train, perhaps?
I will be on the train, yes, talking with the individuals that are on there about that, too.
We're going to talk with some of the ladies now. Ladies, I hesitate to use the word camp followers because perhaps there's a connotation that's there, but I want to mention the fact that there were ladies in camp. Now, can you tell us a little bit about what's the role of the lady in the camp as far as moving with the camp?
Well, ladies in the camp would have been there for certain reasons. There would have been ladies there who were laundresses or cooks, but that would have been very early in the war. There may also be nurses, and that carried throughout the war. Ladies like ourselves may be displaced women, refugeeing from our cities, from our homes, being displaced by the Yankee men as they traveled through our area.
Now, some of you, of course, would travel with your men, wouldn't you?
No, not actually travel with our men, but we would go and visit them, especially if they were officers. It was quite common for a wife, maybe even to bring some of her children with her and go and visit her husband.
Again, normally that wouldn't be when the campaign is on the road, but it would be probably when they're going to be in camp for a few days, weeks.
They're going to be in camp when they're stationed in one particular area for a length of time, yes.
There would be months at a time that the gentlemen would be stationed in a camp, and they would set up their own sort of household in that area. And it was a delight to have the women to come and visit with them and bring a little bit of home to the gentlemen on a day trip.
All right, now we're going to talk with one of the little drummer boys. What's your name?
Jason.
Jason what?
Dietz.
Jason Dietz. Now, you're from Batavia, you told me.
Yeah.
So when this is on, you want to make sure that all your friends see this, right?
Yeah.
Now, tell us a little bit about what you're doing, how you're dressed. Obviously, you're a drummer boy, but fill us in.
This is a musician's cell jacket, and it's like specially designed for the musicians, but that's about all that's different from the other guys.
Can you tell me what the role of the drummer boy would be?
Pretty much, well, you mean like to keep the guys in step when they're...
Right, keep him step and signaling?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
How long have you been doing this?
This is my 3rd year today. This is my anniversary.
How old are you?
I'm turning 12.
Do you know what the average age was for drummer boys? Was it about 12, 13?
10, from like 10 to...
10?
Yeah, and then 10.
And who's your friend over here? Come on over here. What's your name?
Andrew Howski.
Where are you from?
Hamburg.
And you're a drummer boy too?
Yep.
How long have you been doing this?
This is my 1st year.
Are you learning a lot from Jason?
Yeah.
Have you been marching with the other guys, the other reenactors?
Yeah.
And you're both going to be on the train today?
Yep.
Now we're going to be talking to one of the flag bearers. And your name, sir,
is Mark Davison, and I'm a private in the 155th New York Volunteer Infantry. And my role in this man's army is to carry the colors. And in the military of 1865, or even before that, from 1860 on, people formed on the colors. In the heat of battle, what you had to do, you had to be able to find your unit. So you did that by the color. So the color was most important. The only difficulty with that is the colors became the target.
Primary target?
Primary target. And it was considered literally an honor to carry the colors, and quite frankly, you knew you were going to die for carrying those colors. But the men would rather do that than to, have a lesser role.
Is it true that when we've seen, or we've done some reading about the flag bearers, that normally they don't have a weapon with them, or they don't use the weapon?
Normally they're equipped to carry a weapon. I have my cartridge box and my haversack, and I'm ready in case the colors go down, or if someone would grab the colors, I can grab a musket from the field, and I'm ready to go into action. But normally they would not have had their own muskets with them. That is correct.
And you said basically the flag is used for communication as well as for people to form up on.
That is correct. Yeah, a little bit of communication, but mostly as a guide for people to find their way in the heat of battle and the smoke of battle.
You wait the war for it.
War will be over by the time you get that on.
Quickly, the other side. How many years you've been in the Army you haven't learned yet? Shoulder, arm.
Sergeant Parker.
Sir.
Dismiss these men except for, who is that?
Hess, sir.
Private Hess. Deal with him.
Hess, fall to the front. What did I do? The rest of the squad.
Conscript.
Thank you. Get back here, Corporal. Now, I want you to go through the manual lines on your own. Like I said before, do not load that musket. Is that understood?
Yes, sir.
Senator from the state of New York, and I want you to know that I am against the draft that was instituted in March.
Did you say what?
Now, the reason I am is very simple. President Lincoln and Congress has not taken time to find out if it's legal. And I say that the Supreme Court should act on it.
Shut up, you copperhead!
Listen, now go listen to me. You want to listen to me?
I know.
Thank you.
Wait a minute.
You had the right side. Oh, jeez. Oh, my God. Get me away from him. That's Jonah. I didn't mean it. Save it for the run. Save it for the run. That wasn't my surgical. They made me. People know where I'm at. They go crazy. You man, take him in the depot. Get him out of the sun. It was an accident, sir. Please. God, I didn't want to do that.
John Dietz is with us now. John, you're the one who lined this all up for us today. Tell us what's going on and what we can expect to happen.
Well, during the events of today, we've got the Federal Army in possession of the train. We're guarding it from point A to point B. We've had a lot of Confederate activity along the lines, so therefore we're going to keep the safety of our public.
What can you tell us about the anticipation of the enemy? Do you have any idea about their troop strength?
Their strength, they've mostly been raiders, anywhere in company form, anywhere from 50 to 200 men at a pop have been striking the trains on and off. So therefore, we're coming in with two companies, pretty much to equal the strength, push them back, send them back about south of the Mason-Dixon line.
All right, let me ask you some questions now out of character. Tell me a little bit about what's involved in being a reenactor as far as, I know that you do normally one weekend a month, but there's money involved, there's time involved, commitment.
Oh, yes, sir.